You asked for it. Nay, I say you demanded it. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is back as we are talking about free agency here in the Red, Gold, and Bold. With you, as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB, and we've got a lot to cover here in the Red, Gold, and Bold. We'll talk about Jaylon Moore. He gets 2 years, $31 million. Is it all fixed at left tackle? Nick Bolton is back, 3 years, $45 million. For Nick Bolton. We'll talk about the big check that he is getting and whether or not he is worth it. Kristian Fulton added 2 years, $20 million. They pick up a corner. A lot of people didn't see that one coming. Hollywood Brown re-ups for a year. About the same deal. Xavier Worthy, not charged, right? A lot of hubbub there for about 24 hours with Xavier Worthy. What does this mean? Could the NFL still punish him even though there were no charges? Elijah Mitchell inks with the Kansas City Chiefs. And some folks leaving. Tershawn Wharton, Justin Reid, DeAndre Hopkins, Samaje Perine, Justin Watson. We're talking about all of it right here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
All right, we do begin tonight with the left tackle position. We've had a lot of movement. We'll get to that here in a second. And the left tackle maybe being the biggest one. First, let's just talk in generalities. Let's talk big picture. Jeff, overall, we've seen the Chiefs hit the ground running, and I'm going to assume be a lot more active in free agency than a lot of people thought. What's your reaction, what they've been able to get done here so far?
I've liked it. I think they've been smart. They've been prudent. They've tried to make some value acquisitions. Not a blockbuster deal in there, obviously, but the deals that they've made have made sense, from this end of it. And so I think it's close to what Brett Veach was talking about going into free agency. He talked about how they were going to be more focused on the draft and that they understood they had some limitations with their salary cap. And I like that they're being responsible. And so, look, they've made some moves. There's some good and some question marks in there, but ultimately that's what this time of year is about.
Yeah. Sam, what jumps at you initially?
Yeah, I mean, you don't get great bargains in free agency. That's not what free agency is designed for. I mean, look, the Chiefs have not gotten themselves into down some particularly bad roads because the free agency contracts we're talking about, even the ones I think are more expensive than they might be comfortable with, are, really 2-year guaranteed type deals that I think they could potentially get out of after a couple of years. But every free agency, I have the same takeaway, which is you don't want to build your team through free agency because things get over expensive. And the Chiefs have paid beyond what I think players are worth because they don't have much other choice at a couple positions, but that's the nature of what free agency is.
I would agree that you're going to spend. You got to overspend when you get out to the open market. So the best way is to get good young talent in the draft, right? That's what I think every team really wants to do. But I don't see the deals. And this is more like, are we all surprised at all the 3-year deals? The 2-year deals like that's industry wide beyond just the Chiefs. Like it used to be everybody was 5 and 6 and 7. And maybe we'll get in here. We'll find out that what the reporting we're getting is the 3-year deal, and then there's 4 more that are voids on the back end of it. But usually they're 5 or 6 or 7, and void has become the new thing. It's basically just announcing that you're going to lop off the end. But they've been that way forever. Most people knew you weren't getting to the final couple of years of a 7-year deal anyway, right? The big marker was when you became cheaper to cut than keep, right? So that's when the deal could be out because you could save money by letting go of a guy. But I do think overall the industry, and I think the Chiefs as well, like they've been – even if we're just going to talk about, so let's talk about Jaylon Moore, for example. 2 years, $15 million up front, $6 million in year 2, so they can cut and get away from that after 1 year. I mean, they'll still have dead money. They won't have any dead. They'll either have 3 and 3, or what would it be, about 4.5 and 4.5, or $9 million. And I'll have to see what the deals end up being. I know there's $6 million guaranteed in the second year, $15 million in the first year. So even that they could get out after 1 year, but they haven't tacked on anything, Jeff, where they're carrying a lot of weight at the back end of this. This continues to be Clark Hunt's marching orders that if you're going to go out there, that's fine, but don't be saddling us with some big hit where I'm going to be looking at a team that's going, 3 and 14 while you re-rack the salary cap.
Yeah, and I think you're right. That is something you see around the league happening, and I think it works on both ends of it. The agents and the players adjust to it because they realize there's probably more opportunities to go back out in the free agency and make some money if you have a good year. But the idea of going out and getting a 5-6 year deal unless you're a quarterback, is folly. So, but I like the way they approached all these deals, and even I saw Tommy was cracking on me about Hollywood Brown. I don't love him being back, but I understand the situation they were placed in that led to that deal. But ultimately, I think a guy like Jaylon Moore, for example, what has he done in this league to deserve whatever the guarantee was? A 2-year, $30 million deal. I mean, he's an unproven quantity. And so he's going to have to prove himself when he does, and then he'll get more money out of it. But I like that approach because you're not putting yourself in a bad spot down the road.
First of all, I have a pain in my hand just from hitting the mouse to put up Tommy's comments here because he's such an insufferable pain in my ass every day of the week. By the way, hashtag sarcasm for people who don't know. Tommy's been a listener for like 20 plus years. But his point is a good one. Like, I am, but I think Tommy, you take your point about how much it went there for Hollywood Brown, and you put it next to what Sam McDowell said. Free agency is not where you pay the actual value. Free agency is where you pay to get something right now, and you have to beat other teams. I do think it's ridiculous, the number that Hollywood Brown's getting with the injury history, and then his most injured year that he's had in his entire career. I think it's ridiculous. And that's what free agency is. It's a supply and demand market. And what else is out there? Did you want to give $30 million a year and a 3rd-round draft pick for DK Metcalf? Did you want to give, what was it, $27 million a year, I think, for Devontae Adams? These are your options. So if you want 1 year, you don't want to be tied up. I mean, this is what you have to do, right? This is the cost of doing business. Sam, that was your point.
Yeah, I mean, I know we'll get into Hollywood Brown, but as a little teaser for it, Dyami Brown is going to make $12 million next year. He's guaranteed 10. He's going to make 12. Hollywood's guaranteed 6.5, could make up to 11. Brown, with the Jaguars, had 308 yards last year in a healthy season. Yeah. In 4 years, he's not even got 800 yards combined.
You're talking about
4 years. Well, he signed with the Jaguars, though.
Yeah. Well,
for $10 million up to $12 million, like that is a more expensive player than what the Chiefs got in Hollywood Brown.
No, I'm with you. I just meant you said he did this with the Jags. He's going to the Jags.
Yeah.
He was with the Commanders. Just to be clear, if anybody's scrambling the numbers. But your point is valid. What he did
with a passing offense, with a pass-first offense that had more passing success than this offense did last year.
But what he did have was a monster game in the playoffs. Right? He had one big game in the playoffs, which and the market sucks. Yeah. I mean, I'm in total agreement with you. But I do think, like, for me, and I want to get to Jaylon Moore. We can come back around more with Hollywood Brown. I do think Dyami Brown is going to be one of the guys that you kind of measure. Was this the right move? Listen, Christian Kirk was a guy that I targeted for the Chiefs when he signed with the Jaguars, at about a third of what he ended up being paid, right? Like, that was the thing. He looked like a Chiefs guy. Great speed. I think he was only 25 years old, hit the free agent market. There was a lot to like. He was a Chiefs-looking wide receiver. The Jaguars totally blew the market up. So this is what happens when you go into free agency. Speaking of blowing the market up, Jeff, Jaylon Moore has 12 starts in his career. He had 5 starts last year. He now makes $15 million a year in the National Football League and is what projects to be, I don't want to give him the job yet because there'll be at least some semblance of a competition, but projects to be, he's definitely first man up to be a starting left tackle on the defending conference champions in the AFC. I don't know how you could illustrate a point better than that.
Yeah, and no one was talking about him a week ago at this time, right? Nobody was saying, man, they could just find a way to find a diamond in the rough like Jaylon Moore. This would be really good. But I'm being optimistic about this. Like, I don't know anything about the guy. Didn't even know his name until they signed him, to be honest with you. I mean, he was playing behind one of the best left tackles in NFL history, so it makes sense that you'd probably have a hard time noticing him. But this is what you have to do when you're in the Chiefs situation, and I completely understand this. Now, how seriously they were thinking about Ronnie Stanley is a question we'll never know. But once you got past that option, there weren't a lot of great ones, except for the trades that went down. Now, the Laremy Tunsil one, that was an interesting one for me. Was that a possibility? Was the asking price too high for him on that trade? But that one made a little more sense if you want to figure out left tackle, because that's a guy who can play left tackle at a high level, even though he's 31 years old. But so, yeah, I don't know what to expect from Jaylon Moore, and I don't know if he's going to fare any better than the guys they played there last year.
Who was it you said made more
Laremy
sense?
Tunsil.
At a price, I'm told that was going to be a first, a third, and 26 change. So 20, at 26 fourth, 26 fifth, sixth, something like that. I mean, would you go a first and a third? And then I don't think there's any chance Laremy Tunsil steps on the field for the Commanders with the current deal.
He went for what, a second and what? A fourth?
Second, third, and fourth, right?
Second, third, and fourth. Yeah.
I think there was 4 picks coming to them and 1 pick going back. So it was like 3 picks and then a trade and then a trade up from 5th to 4th, I think is what it ended up being.
Second, third, 4th, and 7th, and a 4th coming back. Now those are spread across 2 years, but still.
And they're paying him too? Is that what part of this is?
Well, we just assume they'd have to, right? I mean, it doesn't make a ton of sense otherwise.
Laremy Tunsil will want a new deal, and he has all the leverage. You can't trade for that guy and then watch him sit out for a year. Like, they had to have – what I was told was anybody that was interested in Tunsil. And by the way, I saw some people saying the Chiefs didn't even ask. They definitely were in the conversation.
Oh, my God, yes.
I mean, stop with the foolishness of like GMs don't have each other's number or something. They definitely asked about Laremy Tunsil. And the question is, like, whatever anybody else gives, when you pick 31, with the exception of the Philadelphia Eagles, you have to go around higher, probably with the highest pick to get it. Right? And so what I was told was that when the Chiefs did call, they were told 1st and 3rd. Now, could they have grinded and go 1st and 4th? Maybe. Could they have gotten it to a 2nd? No. I don't think there's any way that they were going to do a deal with the Chiefs. No. Unless it's a first, because not only do you have to top the Commanders deal, you have to pay an AFC tax. You're one of the chief rivals for the Texans, and they are not going to make it easy for you to get the exact thing that you need. So I think it's just foolishness to think that the Chiefs didn't try on this. I think it was going to be really, really hard for them to get it. Well, let's just put it. You bring up the Laremy Tunsil thing. Would they have been better if they gave up a 1st, a 3rd, and let's say a 4th in 26 and have Laremy Tunsil? I think what it would have required was no Trey Smith, which I think a lot of people would say, okay, I'll trade the guard for the tackle. But I'm trading 26 for 30, right? That's the other thing. So you are getting the older player and a player that has been at risk. If everyone doesn't remember the gas mask draft night, with the weed and everything that was going on, although there hadn't really been any problems with him. And I think right now a lot of general managers are like, he's home smoking weed? Yes. At least he's not driving 100 miles an hour down the streets of down the highways of Dallas. So I mean, for a lot of people, they'd be like, good, he's chill, I'll take him. But and I think it's a legit question, but the Chiefs have needs, right?
Yes, but that is the legit question here. It's why we'll get to Bolton too. It's why these moves of the high dollars you do spend are worth critiquing, because it does rob you of these other opportunities. And I think that the price on Tunsil was too high, but I don't mean the financial price. I mean the draft pick compensation price. I mean, we all talked about Friday and said Brett Veach was right that they need to build through the draft. You can't do that when you trade a first-round pick and a third-round pick for an offensive tackle. So, especially a guy that's going to be 31 in August. So. The question about whether or not it would help him this year, yes. Every future year, probably not. And I think that the Chiefs' window should be open for longer than this year. It just depends on where you're at in your build. And for me, the Chiefs' build is as long as Patrick Mahomes is still in his prime, and he very clearly is.
Yeah, for sure. I think and I think Tunsil is a really good one, and I think the Chiefs looked at it. So I think it's a good one to discuss.
They definitely looked at him, yeah.
Dan Moore to the Titans, 4 for $82 million. Like, this is one that I think is I mean, all you had to do was give him money. There's no draft pick compensation. Jeff, do you sit? Where do you sit on getting Dan Moore? He for $21 million. I don't think you would have had to have topped it. In fact, you might have been able to get him 4 for $80. Save a couple $1 million to come play for a team that's a contender versus going to one of the worst teams in the NFL. So maybe you could have got him for a little bit less, but was this a real option? I mean, this is the other guy that's a starting tackle this is a starting tackle as opposed to a backup tackle that you could have had. It was going to cost you $50 million more.
Yeah, but he didn't grade as high as a pass blocker, right? I think that was the issue with him. That he's okay. Like, he's not some. Forget about the price tag. He wasn't some knock you off your feet type of player you had to get in here as a young guy to play that position. So no, I don't have a problem with them passing on that. I think if you're going to make a move, if you're going to swing for the fences, you swing for the fences at that position with somebody who is a proven commodity, somebody is a Pro Bowl level, high level player who. I would even quibble with the idea that a first and third is too high for you. If you tell me right now you can spend a first round pick on a guy and give up a third to get a player can play left tackle for you for this team, I take it. Maybe I'd let Trey Smith walk in the process, but I'd feel better about my offensive line today with that option than I do with what they have right now.
I'm looking here for his overall grade. Where do you sit?
Well, Dan Moore allowed the most sacks in the NFL last year. He allowed 16 and a half sacks, which led the league according to Next Gen Stats. But that speaks to why the Chiefs pay $15 million for a guy who's had 12 career starts and never. I think actually a better stat to analyze where Jaylon Moore isn't the 12 career stats. It's that he's never started more than 5 in a season. Like, he's never gone through the weekly grind to play a full season. This will be his first time. And so you're banking on him doing something that he's never done before. But the reason you're banking on a guy like him is because a guy that led the league in sacks allowed is getting $20 million and getting a hell of a lot of guaranteed money. That's the nature of where left tackle is in the league. And I don't blame the Chiefs for not having this position solved. I do blame them for not having somebody that can play there to where the bottom doesn't fall out the way it did last year. Because you can find there's a gap between all pro and serviceable. And the Chiefs haven't been able to land in that gap yet. And maybe they obviously think Jaylon Moore can be in that gap. But my biggest question on Jaylon Moore is, look, we'll get to Kristian Fulton later. And I guarantee you a lot of people like the Kristian Fulton signing because they say Dave Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo develop and get the ceiling out of cornerbacks. And by the way, that argument is right. But then I'd ask, what about Jaylon Moore? What's the evidence that you see with the Chiefs' development of offensive tackles that leads you to believe that they're going to get the best out of a player who has not ever been a starter? Because it's not just Kingsley Suamataia on their track record. It's Wanya Morris, it's Lucas Niang, it's Darian Kennard. They've drafted 4 tackles in the last 5 years and not developed any of them into this gap between all pro and serviceable.
You're making my point for me. Again, and I understand, like Sam said, look, the window's always open as long as Mahomes is here. I think what Philadelphia proved is that you need more than just Mahomes. And the thing that I see with this team is once you move out of the Chris Jones, Travis Kelce era, there is a big void there that is going to be harder to fill with star players when you're drafting where they draft. And so when you have a chance to get players who are, again, proven commodities, I totally understand the age issue with Laremy Tunsil. I'm not pushing for the trade. I'm just saying I could see the value in that move if they had made it as far as the near future.
I think if they could have gotten him for a second and a third, he'd be wearing a Chiefs uniform. And I think they would gladly hand over the $30 million a year to get in there. I think they would have done it. And I think Trey Smith, they would have let walk, and they would have taken the draft pick. I think they would have done it. I think they couldn't get it done for an amount that they wanted to. But to Sam's point, I mean, I do want to say that Wanya Morris, Kingsley Suamataia, these were draft picks that were made to try to – I don't think they thought they had a superstar, despite what Louis Riddick was trying to sell last year. But I think they thought they had serviceable. I think that's what they've done. So, but I think it speaks to that when you try serviceable, when you fail, you get miserable, right? Like, so that's part of it. Sometimes you think you've got a star. Like I think Amarius Mims, people think might have some star ability. He landed at 21 to the Bengals, hurt at Georgia, hadn't played that much at Georgia, and was hurt coming into the year with the Bengals. He's kind of lived up to exactly what he was, but has all the physical tools, just a mountain of a guy, long arms, tested well. That's the guy you draft him and go, well, if he sucks, we get, he tested way better than Orlando Brown. You hope that you're going to get better than Orlando Brown, but you could end up having a stud left tackle. I think to your point, Jeff, where you said, well, you need more than Mahomes. I think you need more than Mahomes last year when you ran into an Eagles team that stacked it all up for a short run and got everybody healthy and got to the finish line. Yes, I think you need more, but I don't think they had any more the year before, and they didn't need more, right? Like I think that's
they had the defense the year before,
but they had a defense this year. They were going.
That was not the same defense.
Going into the final game before they played the Broncos, they were a top 5 defense, and at the end, I think they were 4-9 in the respective rankings. Going into that game, they were like 3-5. I can't remember what we quoted, or 4-6 in yards and points. They were not that far off, right?
That's still not the same defense.
Fine.
We can debate about how far off they were.
They didn't lose by that much, and I think there's that much difference. They got their ass kicked because they ran into a team that loaded up. There have been 2 teams in the last 10 years that have loaded up and said, we're all in, and that have got it done. And that's the Rams, and that's the Eagles. Well, we've already seen the Eagles now walking on Josh Sweat, walking on Gardner Johnson, walking on Darius Slay, walking on Milton, right? So pieces are already walking right out the door, and they just gave $17 million to Zach Bond, who it's only a 3-year deal. There's probably 5 voids on the back of their deal, but I'll be surprised if he gets to the end of that deal, because we're talking about a guy that was valued at $2.5 million a year ago and now is worth $51.5 million. Like, he had a premium year when all those guys were in front of him. Now that they're not in front of him, let's see if Zach Bond looks really good. Like, I think that deal, like, we're going to talk about Nick Bolton, and I think it's pricey, and I think you can make a case that they should have walked on him, a strong case for it. But Zach Bond is not worth $17.5 million per year. And so the Eagles are watching guys walk out the door, and Mekhi Becton's leaving. So, yes, they put it all in. And if a team gets if they have a quarterback who's not yet expensive, and the Eagles keep putting that off by rolling that money back, who's not yet expensive, and you pour all that money into it, they're going to be a bitch. If they're healthy, there's no doubt about it. But the Chiefs can't, they can't unwind the Mahomes contract, right? It is what it is. They're better off with Mahomes than without him. And so, there's going to be some years. Like, I don't think you can fault Brett Veach and his staff for not constructing a roster that's better 2 to 53. I don't think it's ever going to be better 2 to 53. When Andy Reid shits his pants and Patrick Mahomes has a bad day, they lose. That's it.
Well, and that's I'm not arguing about how they constructed it. I'm arguing how they've spent the money to construct it. The point Sam made was the point that I've made multiple times, which is if you're going to spend money on your middle linebacker, on your guard, on positions that aren't as relevant as the premier positions, when those premier positions come up, you're going to lose out on these players. And these are the players that ultimately win the games for you. You're not winning because you're guard or your middle linebacker.
And I don't think Soren's arguing that, but let me tell you a stat that I looked up yesterday with the help of Jesse Newell yesterday when we're in the Stars office. I looked up the last times that a team had paid these 3 positions in top 10 money with Nick Bolton, Trey Smith, and Creed Humphrey. So center, right guard, off-ball linebacker. The last team I could find that's made the playoffs, having paid top third of the league money, was 2017. Like, it's been 8 years since a team has tried this formula and been successful enough to make the playoffs with. It's rare that a team pays these non-premium positions this money. This is the reason it's rare, is because you like to devote a lot of the resources toward the very position that this conversation's about.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It is. But so the money for Jaylon Moore is a premium position if it works out. Just to wrap on that, it is a premium position, and if it works out, it will pay big dividends. Listen, one of the ways it can work out for you is when it comes to your parking lot, focus on your business. Don't be focusing on your parking lot. Our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete have you covered. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot.
At Whataburger, the flavor you've been asking for is back. For a limited time, check out the chicken fajita tacos or grab the Monterey Melt with all those same great flavors you've been missing. Also, for a limited time, check out the all-new Mexican hot chocolate coffee. Or you can try the Mexican hot chocolate shake. That's right, sweet, rich cocoa, warm Mexican cinnamon, notes of brown sugar, and a light kick of chili, swirled in a creamy blend of vanilla ice cream. And don't forget, you can get all your Whataburger favorites and more by downloading the Whataburger app with the QR code. Whataburger, proud sponsor of the Red, Gold, and Bold.
Mad props to the Whataburger. I dinner by myself tonight. Chicken fajita tacos. Oh, love them. They are absolutely fantastic. Call it What a Taco if you want. They are wonderful. Go get them today. A big fan myself. Let's talk about Nick Bolton a little bit more. 3 for 45. We've already kind of started down this road, but my rub on this is that they should have gotten this one done last summer, right? Like if you loved him. Now I know he was coming off injury. And Sam, you made a great case today on the radio, on my radio show, about how, look, they were pretty much the same. They were actually slightly better without him than with him 2 years ago when he missed half the season. I think there's obviously they see a lot more. They see something in him beyond just what those numbers are. But my frustration is, why didn't you get this done last summer? Like, if you knew you wanted him, if you knew he was a key player, I do think we're watching running back and linebacker, because Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond played big roles on a championship team. Now all those positions are ballooning, and they're paying a tax on it when they could have got him cheaper last year. I mean, staying healthy, I guess, that's what it is. They paid a premium number to make sure that the guy could stay healthy.
I mean, I guess my bigger question is why pay it at all? I mean, I don't think the timing of it was my issue with it. I mean, Look, I'll preface this by saying I really like Nick Bolton. But this conversation, all these conversations are about a salary cap league, and we're judging it by that. And under that context, I can't get there with the positional value given what the Chiefs are paying other non-premium positions. I mean, with Jaylon Moore that we just discussed, you were stuck with a little bit of a gamble. Like the Chiefs are pushed into a corner at left tackle. You had a choice at linebacker. And it's rare that when you're debating whether or not you should re-sign a guy, that you actually have the evidence in front of you for what would your team look like without him. And they had it. I mean, Soren, you mentioned that I talked about this on your show, but to have our listeners hear it, I went through the stats because they played 8 games with him and 8 games without him in 2023. And all these numbers are judged by expected points added because that's a per play basis. But they were with him. They were the 4th best pass defense in the NFL and the 26th best run defense. Without him, they were the 4th best pass defense in the NFL and the 22nd best run defense. This team did not change that much with Nick Bolton. I think that there is a lot of value in the little stuff that Nick Bolton does. I mean, I do think he's this quarterback of the defense. I just don't think that value is $15 million for a team that needs the salary cap space. I think Nick Bolton absolutely earned $15 million. But whether or not this team should be the one to pay him, I think is a different question.
This is the number I thought he would get on the open market. It's not the number I thought he would get to stay in Kansas City. But this has to be Steve Spagnuolo beating the drum for this, doesn't it, Jeff?
Oh, without question. And knowing that you're going to lose either Justin Reid or Nick Bolton, the chances of keeping both those guys was zero. And so if you wanted to keep one, Bolton probably made the more sense because he wears the green dot. But I agree with Sam. The number shocked me when I saw it, just because I don't think he's worth that. I think that you mentioned why not get it done last year. I don't think that he had much leverage coming to the table or wanted to have that conversation about an extension when they knew everything Sam just said they knew about how it went when he wasn't playing. So it was not going to be a positive conversation. They knew his limitations. And for the people who love him, and I love him too, he's a really good player.
Yeah.
This is business.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about paying guys a premium, they better be, this guy's never played in a Pro Bowl, never been an all-pro player. And now he's one of the top paid linebackers in the NFL. And so that's going to cost you somewhere else down the road. And that's the only problem I really have with it. I think the defense will continue to be good with him running it. He'll still be a great leader and all that stuff matters. But this is the kind of deal you do when you got a quarterback on a rookie deal, not when you got a really expensive quarterback.
Is there a middle linebacker out there you would have, that's still sitting there? You're like, this would have been fine. You could have grabbed this guy for a couple.
I got one. Drew Tranquil, because he played middle linebacker for this team in 2023.
How about that? Yeah. And got his own extension out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you got two guys with extensions playing linebacker for you. Who else is doing that in the league outside of the 49ers?
I mean, Jeff, you bring up a great point because it was something else that I looked up, and there's a major gap between the top paid linebackers and, like the 10th highest paid linebacker, for example. But Drew Tranquil next year, he's set to count 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's got the 15th highest cap number in the league. Drew Tranquil does. He has the 15th highest cap number in the league.
At linebacker.
At linebacker. For off-ball linebacker, he's got the 15th highest cap number in the league next year. Now, that will fall because there will be other linebackers who sign.
Which, by the way, that number is $6 million.
Yeah, I think next year next year he
that was the average.
Next year he counts 8.5. But that's like these guys don't. This is a lot of money for a linebacker. That's what I'm trying to say. Like Nick Bolton could potentially come in twice that amount, either in year 1 or year 2. We don't know yet. But like it's not that they're not paying linebacker already. Yeah. They are. They have invested in that position.
Yeah. This ain't Mike Singletary and Wilbur Marshall in 1985. Different era.
It is a different era because I think he is that. I'm not gonna Singletary and Marshall. He's not a Wilbur Marshall type player who was like kind of the first, coverage all around guy. But Singletary, he's down that. He's not Mike Singletary. I don't want to say he's a Hall of Famer, but no one will ever be Mike Singletary again because they don't run the ball enough for you to actually show those skills. But he's got those kind of skills. He is a seek and destroy linebacker. And I think clearly they like what he does with the green dot. Like that's a big part of why they decided he couldn't go. But I am with you. This is a lot of money for positions that are premium. And clearly I'll introduce right now, the cap went up bigger than they thought. I don't want to hear next year that they didn't think the cap was going up because I've talked to people and they're all now starting to count on it. They're counting on a big jump and they're really counting on a big jump in 2 years. Like I think they see some streaming things coming. They're counting on a really big jump in 2 years. So I think a lot of 2 years from now's money is being spent now. The backloaded part of these deals, if there is, I don't, knock on wood, I don't think we're gonna have another pandemic where that's the only time the cap went down. But they are counting on not only jumps, but big jumps. So I don't want to hear any crap that we're all surprised when the cap comes in 10 million more. No, you're not. You've already spent it. Okay. So maybe you were this year, but I have been specifically asking that question to people in the NFL. And they're like, oh no, it's going to go up. It's going to go up in leaps and bounds. And so that's part of why this is happening the way it's happening right now. Let's talk a little bit about Kristian Fulton, 2 for $20 million, right? They get a corner, 40th ranked corner. There's 64 starting corners. There's 96 if you add in the nickels. He came in 40th on Pro Football Focus's grades. Sam, where do you sit on Kristian Fulton? First of all, did you see this coming?
Yeah, we went through the needs. I was actually more stunned that Jeff didn't have linebacker on his group because Jeff was the one talking about or the cornerback because Jeff was the one talking about cornerbacks more than any of us all season. And this stat should not surprise Jeff at all. But I'm going to give you a couple stats here that that I looked up here. So there's one particular spot where the Chiefs allowed the most first downs in the NFL. They had the third most expected points added allowed. They had the fifth worst success rate. Do you know where that position was?
Corner.
Slot. It was the slot wide receivers, the players that opened their routes in the slot. The Chiefs allowed them more first downs on that position than anybody. This, to me, solves slot cornerback more than it solves cornerback 3, because I think what the Chiefs should do here is move Trent McDuffie back to his best spot.
Or don't you think that's what this sets him up to do?
Yes. And so therefore you solve – I mean, Shamari Connor, I think, was – and this is why I said this is a Jeff point – was worse than a lot of people thought last year. Not worse than Jeff thought, because Jeff talked about Shamari Connor a lot. But those stats are staggering. And when you look at that, I think that's what the Chiefs saw in their scouting as well, and said slot cornerback's got to get better, but you don't have to get a slot cornerback to make that position better. You had an all-pro, a first-team all-pro slot cornerback on your roster, so why not let him get back to play there when he can?
Yeah, I think it's a big point. Did you see this one coming, and do you like the signing, Jeff?
Well, I thought they would go out and get a corner, either draft one or sign one, because I'm not crazy about as Sam said, I've made it clear about that crew opposite McDuffie last year. I just not a lot to like about them. And then I think over the course of the season that played out. But, what's interesting about Fulton is that he's like the Marquise Brown of cornerbacks, right? Is he going to stay healthy? He's been in the league for 5 years and missed 27 games. So it's like, is he going to be someone who's on the field? And can he handle the demands of the job as Steve Spagnuolo designs his defense? They're going to play a lot. He'll play a lot more man coverage here than he played with the Chargers, because Jesse Minter runs a very zone-heavy scheme there. I think I saw one stat that at one point in the season he was like 82 or 83% zone coverage. So that's a huge change of pace for a guy like Fulton, who I like as a player, but at that position, you better be getting a player who fits what you want to do, and not a player who's got nice PFF grades in a different system.
Yeah. The one of the thing that I think is also there, the 2-year deal buys them some insurance. They've got a whole class. They've got 3 guys now. Right now, the only one that you're like, okay, Jaylon Watson. I don't know. Josh Williams didn't play well enough. Najee Johnson didn't play well enough. But all 3 of those guys are due to leave after this year. So just for depth,
well, they haven't even offered Najee Johnson the exclusive rights free agent tender yet. And I don't know that that's coming.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But Josh Williams and Jaylon Watson will be at free agent, so you either have to pay them or watch them walk, and this gives them some depth there and buys them another year into that. So I think that's an important part of this equation as well, because I do think, and you hit it. This is where, are they better? Would you rather have Fulton or Justin Reid? Sam, was this the decision? A lot is Justin Reid or Nick Bolton, but Fulton and Reid are really comparable contracts here. Which one would you rather have? If
I'm starting a team from scratch, I'm taking Justin Reid hands down. Okay. For what this roster has, and the difference in contracts, 1 extra year is significant in the NFL. I like the Fulton contract better than the Justin Reid for this team. For the Saints, I'd rather have Justin Reid. For this team, because I think Connor plays better as a safety, because I think I like Jaden Hicks more than I like, Najee Johnson or Joshua Williams, whoever else would have to play cornerback 3. I think this fits a better need for the Chiefs than and I love Justin Reid, but I've constantly said he's an underrated player. But I think Fulton fits a need for him.
Jeff?
Same thing. I think Fulton is the better fit, and you can, again, maybe I felt like I was alone on this a lot, but they give him a lot of explosive plays, and they needed to find a way to stabilize that part of their defense, because that's not going to change as they play quarterbacks who are getting more experienced, and teams like the Chargers and the Broncos are going to get more weapons on the outside this year, so you got to be ready for that. Obviously, what Buffalo can do. I just think there's going to be more need to have players who can hold up on the outside. And by the way, is there an underground railroad that runs south to New Orleans from Kansas City? They pick up every ex-Chief defensive player comes available.
Yeah,
Lord,
Tyrann Mathieu.
Dan Soren,
Willie Gay last year.
Willie Gay. I mean, it is. Yes, that is where you go. You immediately just call New Orleans, and they're ready to
all defensive guys.
Yeah. That's what they've done time and time again. We'll talk some offense next after you hear from our friends at Key Cannabis and Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Unlock a premium dispensary experience at Key Cannabis. Visit one of their 14 key locations across Missouri for a huge selection of cannabis products and expert recommendations from Missouri's friendliest bud tenders. At Key Cannabis, you'll find award-winning cannabis, convenient online ordering with drive-through pickup and a loyalty program, plus so much more. Visit their Kansas City area locations in KC North, South Kansas City, and Belton. Open 7 days a week. And mention my name, Soren Petro, to your bud tender for 20% off your purchase. Key Cannabis, open for premium cannabis experiences. Let's talk about the wide receiver. Let's talk about the wide receiver position here as Hollywood Brown, 1 for 11. We've talked about it a little bit. We mentioned a little before. We don't have to spend too long on this, but is there a guy, you mentioned Dyami Brown getting at least 10, maybe 12 million, but Darius Slayton, 3 for 36, Josh Palmer, 3 for 36, Demarcus Robinson. I mean, they've had multiple opportunities to bring Demarcus Robinson back. That's a popular name you hear in season every time the Chiefs need somebody. He signs 2 for $9.5 million. Was there somewhere else they could have gone at the wide receiver position as far as you're concerned, Jeff?
Probably not. I mean, I think you've got a guy in house that you liked. There is I think you got to go back to last year and their expectation of him. Sometimes when a guy gets hurt, you can sell yourself on the idea like that was the problem. It wasn't so much the player, it was just the timing and the circumstance. And so I don't know if that contract he got was what he would have gotten if Xavier Worthy hadn't happened. In fact, I'm pretty confident it wouldn't, because the timing of it seemed to be almost like as soon as you heard the arrest came out, like 30 seconds later, the crawl, Hollywood Brown is signing. But I get it. I get it. You're in a situation where clock is ticking. You're Brett Veach. You're worried about what are we going to do? Are we going to have to overpay for some of these guys? Josh Palmer getting that kind of money kind of surprises me. But Demarcus Robinson has played good football in L.A. That the deal he got was something that made a lot more sense. But ultimately, I think they have an affinity for Hollywood Brown, and they think that last year would have been different if he hadn't been hurt. So we'll find out.
What makes this deal a success? Like, I'll tell you this: he plays 6 games. This was a disaster.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think he'll be hurt again. The guys who get hurt a lot tend to keep getting hurt, and that is the reality of it. And it's just, I wonder how he fits in this offense with Xavier Worthy taking on a bigger role now, because at this time last year, Xavier Worthy wasn't a Chief, and the idea was Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, and we'll see where that takes the Chiefs. And so he's going to have to accept a different kind of role. I do realize that Rashee Rice probably being suspended changes the calculus on how much he will get a chance to play and showcase himself. But I think he's got to prove a lot to me, because I think that the player he was this past year was the player who he's going to be again.
Yeah. You got a big expectation this year. You're going to call for 1,000 yards this year, Sam?
No, I mean you can't bank on him playing, 15, 16, 17 games this year.
Well, boy, you and I sure did last year.
Yeah,
you guys were all over.
I will push back on it being a disaster. Like, I think the Chiefs have protected themselves with this contract. I mean, the fact that almost half of it is based on playing time incentives. I mean, it's more like $6 and $750,000 million or so that you're guaranteeing them for 1 year. I don't know that any 1 year deal that pays that much I would classify as a disaster if it doesn't work out.
That's fair. That's probably too strong, because I think no 1 year contract, there's no such thing as a bad 1 year contract, as a phrase that gets used a lot more in baseball. And so I maybe that's an overstatement to say it's a disaster, but I will say it's shame on you. You got burnt. Why it's the stove is still orange hot. Why are you putting your hand on it?
I think it's because of the rest of the market. I mean, these other guys that
I
we've
agree.
mentioned. I mean, why not take the risk on the guy that knows your system? Every year we talk about how quickly can this guy get up to speed with Patrick Mahomes? How long is it going to take this guy? And look, that's a real storyline. It took Rashee Rice 2/3 of the way into the season. It took Xavier Worthy 3/4 of the way into the season before we saw them connect in this offense. That part is at least solved. And so if he's cheaper than these other guys we mentioned, the ceiling is higher. I think because you have two wide receivers that you feel okay about, which is the difference between when you signed him last year, because Xavier Worthy was much more of an unknown then. I think you can afford to take the high ceiling, potentially low floor player.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say I see him more as insurance than I see him as a playmaker. I think he's more. If he does have a good season, that's great. But if he's not, like Sam said, you're not paying a heavy price for that.
I mean, where is he among wide receiver threes? Because that's what he's going to be here. Like he's an above average.
Well, he's not going to be. He's not going to be wide receiver 3 when Rashee Rice is out.
He's 4.
Yeah. I mean, I don't anticipate that Rashee Rice is going to miss like half the season or something. But
I don't know.
Some news we don't know about, some info.
I don't think it'll be. I mean, look, a lot of times these cases come down and they're not quite as much as we thought. I mean, he's going to face a suspension.
And then there are times that it's Charles Omenihu and they're more than we thought.
Yeah. Well, there was an investigation there that the NFL did that showed more than the original case did. With Omenihu, I'm talking about. I think that the Chiefs should be playing for December and January anyway. And setting themselves up for the best roster that they have then. What I'm saying is I think it would be a mistake if the Chiefs just said, we don't have Rashee Rice, let's go get someone that plays his exact position. I think the Chiefs should put together the best roster that they would have in December and January.
I would push back a little bit too. 14 catches for 141 yards, all total, regular season and postseason. I don't know that the chemistry is necessarily there with him like that you hit the ground running. You're further along, there's no doubt, but we're going to need to see more. Right?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, you got to get more out of Hollywood. But I will say, coming back from a collarbone injury when everyone else has played 15 games and you played 0, is going to be a little bit different than if you open the season week 1, which is, you notice I use the word if twice.
Yes.
For a reason.
Qualifiers. Speaking of qualifiers, we just talked about it with Rashee Rice and Charles Omenihu and investigations. The NFL will investigate Xavier Worthy. He's not going to be charged down in Texas, but how much concern should there be that perhaps the NFL comes in and says, nope, you still violated the policy. You don't have to be arrested. You don't have to be convicted for the NFL to put a penalty at you. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, well, and look, it's one thing I've learned about these kind of cases is you do not want to get into the prediction game about how they're going to play out, because the league stance is, I'm paraphrasing here, like we don't really care about right or wrong, guilty, innocent. We care about PR. And when there's women involved, we've gotten burned. This goes back to the Ray Rice case years ago. We've gotten burned by trying to follow the law. So we're going to hit you heavy, hit you hard. And if you want to appeal, that's great. But when it comes to women and violence, like, we're not going to be tolerant of it. And so, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say he's off the hook. It looks better for him now. But I think about what the sheriff's office said when they dismissed the charges, which is we're not going to charge him at this time. And so that, to me, left some gray area there for the league to go in and investigate. But it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't punished at all. But again, like, Deshaun Watson never served a day in jail, and look what happened to him.
Yeah, I don't think anything's coming, but I'm not going to fall out of my chair if something does. Elijah Mitchell has looked pretty good at times, but has also battled injuries for the 49ers. Sam, what do you think about the signing of Elijah Mitchell? Just depth, or do you think that he could be more than just depth?
Likely just depth. This doesn't really move the needle for me, to be honest. Like, I still think that in a draft that is heavy at this position, the Chiefs need to be seeking this position. Even if Elijah Mitchell reaches his ceiling, I think he's not a pass catching running back out of the backfield, which I think the Chiefs desperately missed once Jerick McKinnon was no longer part of their equation 2 years ago to last year. Like, they never filled that spot where I didn't think Samaje Perine had the same sort of explosiveness in the passing game that they've had at that position. in past years.
They obviously agree because they let him walk, and he ran to Cincinnati.
Yeah,
Cut him.
Well, they've cut him twice and picked him back up, right? But I mean, somebody in here is still pointing out that Elijah Mitchell is Jerick McKinnon 2.0. Like, he had 6 catches in 11 games in 2023. He had 3 catches in 5 games in 2022, and 19 catches and 10 starts the year before. I mean, in his career, he's had 158 yards receiving in his career. Like, he is not Jerick McKinnon 2.0. Like, that position is still a need.
In an offense where they throw the football to the backs, right? It's not like they're afraid to do that.
They'd like to. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I maybe they can develop him more into it. I like him as a runner. I think he's pretty good as a runner, but you are right. They have not solved the pass catching running back. Part of it's like Mahomes, I guess they got to find somebody who he likes, because Samaje Perine would flare out there and he wouldn't go there. He'd dance around in the pocket looking to try to go make a big play instead of just dumping it out to his back. I think some of it is Patrick Mahomes got to get the football to the running back out there. How about the players leaving, right? Tershawn Wharton, Carolina, 3 for 45. Justin Reid to New Orleans, 3 for 31.5. Yeah, we've talked about him a little bit. DeAndre Hopkins to Baltimore, 1 for $5 million. I love when I see these top 30 lists and top 50 lists of free agents, and DeAndre Hopkins like 12 and 16. I'm like, every I don't get. Would you go talk with the other national guys, Jeff? Because all these names that we know that are 31, 32, 33, 31, 32, 30, they're all up in the top, and they're never the guys that go. It's always guys like, Jaylon Moore, who most people have never heard about, but is 26 years old. And those are the guys that actually end up going. And DeAndre Hopkins goes 1 for 5. Samaje Perine, 2 for 3.6. Justin Watson goes to Houston. I haven't seen any numbers on him. What's your reaction, Jeff, to the guys that are leaving town?
Well, we've said it before. Reid's a big loss. Like, he did play well and was a big factor in what this team did defensively. Tershawn Wharton, I liked a lot, and I think we all agreed it'd be great to get him back, but the market was going to be very favorable to him just because of the way he's performed, and good for him for getting that kind of money. DeAndre Hopkins, I agree with you on that too. The receiver market, if you looked at the names, you'd be like, oh, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, Cooper Kupp, all these guys are available, Stephon Diggs. But, as soon as the DK Metcalfs, the Deebo Samuels, and the Christian Kirk started becoming available, those guys got pushed way down. So I don't even know how D-Hop fits in Baltimore, to be honest with you. I don't think he brings anything close to what Odell Beckham brought when he went over there, and Odell was okay for a while. It just seems like that's a graveyard for him to go to. But Reid and Wharton were big losses. I think that they'll miss those guys.
Yeah. Sam?
Yeah, Justin Reid's the loss here. I mean, I think they can get by without Turk Wharton, and credit to a hell of a story. Undrafted guy, Missouri S&T, now he's getting paid, generational money. They can play without DeAndre Hopkins because they chose to play without him late in the season with his snap count. But Justin Reid's a loss. I mean, he really is. I mean, I think he's a very versatile player. I mentioned to you guys on Friday, he played more snaps in the box than any safety in the NFL last year. I think he's one of the reasons that their running defense improved, actually. He's a student to the game type player. Him and Trent McDuffie study more film than any players on that defense. And it shows up. I mean, he reads plays very well. So they'll miss him, even as I think that it was the right thing to move on from him, because you're paying these other non-premium positions already. Safeties come available a lot in free agency. It's not a position that, I'd spend that much money on a guy that the third year is going to be when he's 30 years old, but you'll miss him. He had a great year last year, and it'll be different without him.
Yeah, the Tershawn Wharton, I'm amazed at the amount that he got. And I think good for him, but I think I'll be surprised if that's a backloaded deal. He'll never see the third year. He'll never see the third year.
Yeah,
because they'll be like they're expecting that there's going to be more there, and his sack numbers are higher than they should be based upon his pressure numbers. I think he's a nice rotation piece, but I can't help you with that. I mean,
don't we know someone in the building could
we do
be his champion?
Maybe
this is Eric Eager.
Tershawn Wharton had 42 pressures last year. I mean, that was 22nd in the NFL.
Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. I thought I saw one of this. I read something that was talking about that his sacks per pressure were like one of the highest numbers. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe I'm looking at something. Maybe I don't know. I got it wrong. It's been reading a lot of
He
crap.
played well in the Super Bowl. When the few guys
he did.
He was terrific early in the season. He was terrific in the big games late in the season. I thought over the middle of the season. So his pressure percentage from the interior was 8.2% last year, 6.9 the year before, 4.9 the year before. So you have seen some growth there from him from year to year the past few years. But look, I mean, another team affording that and the Chiefs affording that are two different questions, right? I don't think any of us are pounding our fists on the table saying that was a deal that the Chiefs should have been interested in. Yeah. I am going to slam dunk on Tommy Moe once more here. He wants McKinnon's pass catching stats with the 49ers. He had over 1,000 yards before he came to Kansas City, just receiving. He caught 27, 21, 43, 51, and 33 before he came to Kansas City. The numbers were there with Jerick McKinnon. There's no way you can compare Elijah Mitchell to Jerick McKinnon. Like, they are not the same type of running back.
I'm trying to find where this foolishness is from Tommy, because I'd like you to. Here we go. Give me McKinnon's pass catch.
I gave him.
Tommy, are you the only man on earth that doesn't have Google? Like, how are you watching a stream and you can't Google that crap on your own? Like, what are you doing? Like, seriously, man, what are you doing? That's like, I expect more from a varsity letterman like yourself, for God's sake. Yeah. All right. We'll see what else they can get done. I think for the most part, it's the draft. There'll probably be some veteran add-ons on one-year deals a little bit later on, but usually most of the heavy lifting comes in the first couple of days. It was when these 2 days went by and he didn't have a deal that Orlando Brown went, I better take what's out there. So there might be one or two more of those. And then after that, it starts to get few and far between. All right, that's going to do it for us. Remember, you can always support the Red, Gold, and Bold by, one, telling people about it. If you got a Chiefs fan that you know, they're not watching, they're not listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold, tell them about it. That'd be one. Hit that like button, hit that love button. Go ahead and share it. We would appreciate it. Don't cost you nothing, but it does a lot of good for us. We're always brought to you by our sponsors, our great sponsors. You'd support them with free consultations, no commission, in-house crews. Gann Asphalt and Concrete keeps your parking lot safer, helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. By our friends at Whataburger. Check out the chicken fajita tacos. Mwah, I love them. Or grab that Monterey Melt. Great flavors you're missing. You can get them right now at Whataburger. They're open 24 hours. You can also try the Mexican hot chocolate shake, a sweet, rich cocoa, warm Mexican cinnamon, notes of brown sugar, and a light kick of chili swirled in a creamy blend of vanilla ice cream. You will love it. It is at Whataburger. And, of course, by our friends at Key Cannabis. Make sure when you go by Key Cannabis, you mention my name, Soren Petro. Mention Soren Petro to your bud tender. Save 20% off on your entire order. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.